Well, ladies and gentlemen, there was a ton that we have to cover in the news today. We're going to knock out some of the stories. Then I'm going to get into some of the details that I believe Barack Obama is guilty of treason with. And then at the end of the show, we're going to talk about the Russian interference or the lack thereof. And also we'll hear from Alex Jones. He's got a special report about what George Soros had to say about Donald Trump. But here's some of the headlines that we'll touch on real quick before we get into any of that. This is from the New York Times. National Biotechnology Panel faces new conflict of interest questions. And there's a graphic on this story that kind of breaks it down so you can understand it better. But the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine are assigned by Congress to provide policy guidance to the government. The group describes itself as the advisors to the nation. One of those committees is facing questions about how its members were selected. Critics say that several committee members have financial ties to biotech businesses that could color the panel's report. Does that remind you of Monsanto and the FDA at all? You might want to check the conflict of interest between those two groups. This is another story. This is kind of one that has been developing for years, I suppose. Argentine court revives bombing cover-up case against former President Fernandez. An Argentine appeals court on Thursday revived a case accusing former President Fernandez to try to cover for trying to cover up Iran's alleged role in the bombing of Buenos Aires Jewish Center in 1994. The prosecutor who first brought the allegation, Alberto Nisman, died mysteriously in January of last year. Nisman's death was initially classified as suicide, but an official investigation to the case said earlier this year the evidence points to homicide. So how do you like that? It's not like we ever see these suicides or alleged suicides look like they might be something different. So we'll keep an eye on what's going on with the former president of Argentina and the covering up of that bombing. France raises terror tax to support victims of attacks. This has to be one of the most unreal things I've ever heard. French citizens will contribute an extra 1.6 euros. That's just about $1.67 on their property insurance policies to help finance a fund for victims of the extremist attacks that have recently hit the country. That's right. Watch what you wear. Watch what you say. Don't celebrate Christmas. Carry around a rape whistle. Wear your special bracelet that says you don't want to be raped. And now pay us a tax. That's how we're going to stop the extremist violence going on in Europe. We're going to keep letting the extremist violent people in. You need to be tolerant and adjust your lifestyle. And you know what? Pay us a little money for the trouble, too. Turkey's Erdogan, Russia's Putin held talks over phone about the Syria ceasefire. So Putin, Erdogan talking on the phone. They agree to a ceasefire. What's missing from this picture? Oh, yeah. Barack Obama. Missing. MIA. Not involved in the ceasefire talks. What do you know? Wow, shocking that Putin and Erdogan would want to keep Obama out of the talks to bring about a ceasefire, and then they're successful. What does that tell you about Barack Obama, folks? What does this tell you about Barack Obama? 8 years of Obama vacations cost the taxpayers $85 million. That's right, folks. And that's not just Barack Obama and his family. That's also his extended family and friends. That's also the personal chef of Michelle and her family, her mother, everybody else, the person that does her manicures, everybody that flies around with the Obamas. That's nice. $85 million of our money towards the Obama's vacation. Now, they actually think that this is going to be closer to $100 million by the end of his final term as president, and once they actually collect all the fees. So that's nice. It'll be interesting to see, Donald Trump seems to be someone who wants to stay at his own resorts, go to his own places. So maybe we're not going to be spending $100 million on vacations for Donald Trump, but I guess time will tell. Now, back to Obama, folks. I have a litany of news here. These are puzzle pieces, and I'm going to try to put together a puzzle of what I believe is acts of treason against this country perpetrated by our president, Barack Obama. Now, this is part of the U.S. Code, Chapter 115, Treason, Sedition, and Subversive Activities. Unfortunately, I can't get to all this because of time restraints, but here are some of the main ones that I'm going to read from the U.S. Code, and then we're going to put it together with what Obama has done here over the years. This is 2381 in this chapter, treason. Whoever owing allegiance to the United States levies war against them or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the United States, is guilty of treason and shall suffer death. So we'll get into maybe some of that from Obama. This is 2383, rebellion or insurrection. Whoever incites, sets foot, assists, or engages in any rebellion or insurrection against the authority of the United States or the laws thereof, that's we the people, folks, or gives aid or comfort to anyone who would be engaging in rebellion or insurrection against we the people. This is from 2385, advocating overthrow of the government. Whoever with intent to cause the overthrow or destruction of any such government prints, publishes, edits, issues, circulates, sells, distributes, or publicly displays any written or printed matter advocating, advising, or teaching the duty, necessity, desirability, or propriety of overthrowing or destroying any government in the United States by force or violence, or by written or printed matter, the NDAA, against we the people. Whoever organizes or helps or attempts to organize any society, group, or assembly of persons who teach, advocate, or encourage the overthrow or destruction of any such government by force or violence, Black Lives Matter, becomes or is a member or affiliated with any such group or assembly of persons knowing the purposes thereof, is guilty. The term organizes and organize with respect to any society, group, or assembly thereof persons include the recruiting of new members, the forming of new units, and the regrouping or expansion of these existing corporations. Now, this is something that George Soros is a master of, folks. And then 2389, recruiting for service against the United States. Whoever recruits soldiers or sailors within the United States or any place subject to the jurisdiction thereof to engage in armed hostility against the United States is guilty and shall be punished. So now I'm going to now that's just a few things. I couldn't get to all of this because of time restraints, like I said. But now why would I feel like Obama might be guilty of some of that? Why do I feel like some of this is going on? And this is obviously a lot of convoluted stuff. But you know what? I'm going to try to paint a picture here. I'm going to try to put this puzzle together, and maybe it'll make sense at the end. So let's start here. Now, some of these stories are old. Some of these stories are new. Let's start with a story from June earlier this year. CIA director. ISIS is trying to infiltrate the U.S. through refugee programs. CIA Director John Brennan said that ISIS is training operatives and attempting to enter the U.S. through refugee flows, smuggling routes, and legitimate methods of travel. This announcement comes as President Obama pushes to reach his goal, bringing in at least 10,000 additional Syrian refugees to the U.S. this year. In order to accomplish this objective, the Obama administration has reduced the screening process for Syrian refugees from 18 to 24 months just down to 3. This change was made despite a warning from FBI Director James Comey that said the U.S. does not have the ability to thoroughly screen Syrian refugees. Interesting. Why would Obama be bringing them in despite the violence and the warnings from the CIA? Well, how about maybe he wants to listen to ISIS? Maybe he likes them more. ISIS smuggler. We will use refugee crisis to infiltrate West. 4,000 covert terrorists already in place awaiting orders. Author Robert Spencer wrote earlier this year for Front Page Magazine, this is no longer just a refugee crisis. This is Hijra. Hijra is the Islamic doctrine of migration, which is a form of stealth jihad. And he quotes the Quran. And whoever immigrates for the cause of Allah will find on the earth many locations and abundance. And whoever leaves his home is an immigrant to Allah and his messenger, and then death overtakes him. His reward has already become incumbent upon Allah, and Allah is never forgiving and ever forgiving and merciful. But Obama wants to bring these people into our country, despite the warnings from the CIA, from ISIS. He doesn't have a problem because, look, Obama administration is bringing in refugees at a higher rate. Even after Trump got elected, they were already bringing them in at an astronomical rate. And then on November 9th, he increases that rate again. So again, is this treason against the country? You know that ISIS is infiltrating these people. You've been warned by multiple sources, yet you want more of them here. Is that not treason? I ask you. Now, let's move on to another angle. Again, some of this is old news, but we're trying to paint a picture here. Obama proposes $500 million to aid Syrian rebels. Program to train and equip moderate opposition would expand U.S. role in civil war in Syria. Well, there's so much double standard here. First of all, it's hilarious. So it's okay for the United States to assume a role in a civil war in Syria in putting bombs and weapons into that region, but it's not okay for Russia to allegedly hack John Podesta and the DNC's emails to expose corruption. We don't mind getting involved in Syrian civil wars, but God forbid Russia allegedly hacks corruption within the United States. CIA arms for Syrian rebels supplied into the black market. So these weapons and everything that Obama is putting into that region ends up in the hands of ISIS or ends up on the black market. This is according to officials in the Jordan intelligence agencies and the Central Intelligence Agencies. The weapons shipped into that region by the United States and Saudi Arabia intended for Syrian rebels, ISIS, has ended up on the black market. Some of the stolen weapons were used in a shooting that killed 2 Americans at a police training facility in Jordan. So there's the Obama administration sends weapons and then they kill Americans. How is that not treason? ISIS video, America's airdropped weapons now in our hands. A new video, ISIS shows American-made weapons. It says were intended for the Kurds, but actually were airdropped into the territory that was occupied by ISIS. Again, these are old stories. You've already heard all this. But we're just trying to put it together, and then I'm trying to make the link to treason against this country via our president. And then this is a new one. More weapons found in eastern Aleppo left by moderate rebels. Now, we already knew this was going on. They just cleared out eastern Aleppo, and what did they find? Billions of dollars worth, folks. Billions of dollars. The Syrian Arab Army today discovered a new depot stacked with all types of weapons, hand grenades, tanks, guns, laser-guided missiles, billions of dollars. And where did all this came for? That is good enough for several years of war. We know exactly where it came from. This was the moderate rebels that Obama was arming. Yeah, ISIS extremists. Russia, mass graves full of tortured civilians discovered in Aleppo. This is another new one. So the same area in eastern Aleppo where they found the Western-provided weapons, they have now found mass graves of tortured human beings. Okay? So don't sit here and tell me about Russian influence in our election. We've got a president that can now have his hands all over tortured people in Syria. Excuse me. And now here's more. WikiLeaks confirms Hillary gives ISIS weapons. Fact check Obama and Hillary, the founders of ISIS. You bet. You can decide that. I think it's a little more convoluted than to put it that simply. But folks, again, you cannot deny what happened in Syria. You cannot deny that the Obama administration has been sending funding and weapons into that region that has been destabilized. And now we're finding out that those very weapons were used to kill Americans and torture people. It doesn't even stop there. The treasonous president doesn't even stop there. The Black Lives Matter kills list. At least 11 cops shot dead, 9 more wounded by Black Lives Matter supporters. Not to mention all the violence, all the protests, all the arrests, all the racial tension that has come from this. This has not been good for America. Beyond any issues you want to mention about police or racial issues, this has not been good for racial issues. This has not been good for police. This has not been good for anyone. It's resulted in many people dying. It's resulted in racial tensions being worse in this country. But you know, has Obama done anything about this? We'll touch on that in a minute. But again, this is Obama's real legacy. A spike in ambush-style attacks against police officers. So far this year, 20 law enforcement officers have died in planned assaults carried out by gunmen. This is the highest number in at least a decade. And that would be the Obama administration. Many rank-and-file officers say the protest and public outcry over police shootings have given rise to a national climate where some people feel justified in attacking officers. Of course, when you've got the mainstream news justifying them, when you've got Barack Obama justifying them, what do you think is going to happen? Black Lives Matter activists join Obama at forum on policing. What do you think is going to happen when again, not everybody involved in the Black Lives Matter movement is bad. I'm not sitting here saying that. I'm sitting here and looking at an overall scope of what is going on, who's funding it, what has come from this movement, and it's not good. It's not good to me. And what do you think is going to happen? These people are in the streets chanting no justice, no peace, chanting kill police, and then you're going to put these people and have their voice heard at a forum on policing? That's like bringing police officers to that forum that just chant, we want dead citizens, we want dead people, we want dead immigrants or something like that. No, you wouldn't do that. That's absurd. So why are you doing it the other way? Prominent Black Lives Matter activist to attend Obama meeting. Prominent Black Lives Matter activist DeRay McKesson said Wednesday he is attending a meeting with President Obama designed to help mend frayed ties between law enforcement and the communities they serve. Here's an idea. Quit breaking the law. Quit starting protests. Let the police do their job. And I understand they're not, look, if there is a police officer who has wronged you, if there's a police officer that's out of hand, you have the law, you have the court, you can file suit and you can do something about it. These protests have done nothing. But and by the way, Obama met with 3 hours with these people. Didn't meet for 1 minute with the flood victims in LA or in Louisiana, but he'll meet for 3 hours with the Black Lives Matter people who chant no more racist police, kill the police in the streets. How do you think that went? So I ask you, America, do you think Barack Obama is guilty of treason? I think you should check the U.S. code.
3 years ago, the Congress in the National Defense Authorization Act repealed the law that had been on the books for decades, barring the CIA and other agencies from engaging in domestic propaganda and disinformation. Over the weekend, they passed the Countering Disinformation and Propaganda Act that funds $160+ million to this new organization that will, quote, discover and counter with its own disinformation alternative media that they dub fake news. At the very same time, we see mainstream media claiming that Trump, myself, Tucker Carlson, you name it, are Russian agents, and that the American people really wanted Hillary Clinton, but the Russians somehow hacked in, and that's why Trump won. Yes, we've gotten Trump elected, but they're openly trying to overthrow that. Now more than ever, InfoWars needs your prayers and your support, and I need you to take the articles and the videos that are on the site and realize you're the reason we're having such an effect. You're the power of InfoWars. Get those articles, get those videos, get those special reports out to everyone you know. As we approach Christmas, I'm not even supposed to say that word now, our country's under such incredible thought police tyranny. It's important to be thankful, and I am extremely thankful to all of you that have prayed for us, that have spread the word about the broadcast, that have supported us, that have defended us, and that have financially supported us. We go out and search for the very best products, and we also develop amazing products and then bring them to you at very competitive prices. So when we have a sale, it really is a sale. That's why this week through the 17th, we can guarantee you'll get delivery before Christmas. Again, if you order by this Friday, the 17th, and you will get store-wide free shipping at InfoWarsStore.com. And on top of that, some of the biggest discounts of the year. 30% off Living Defense Parasite Cleanse, 50% off Colloidal Silver Bullet, and free shipping. That is just an incredible deal. Brain Force Plus, now with 20% more in each bottle and 30% off. $19.95, can't beat that deal. Winter Sun, Vitamin D3, 25% off. Survival Shield, X2, Nascent Iodine, again, an amazing 30% off. BioTrue Selenium, 30% off, and that's just some of the specials. Check them out today at InfoWarsStore.com or InfoWarsLife.com, or call toll free. The great crew will answer your questions, tell you about some of the other specials, and take your order if you'd like. 888-253-3139. And finally, from myself, Alex Jones, and the rest of the InfoWars crew and my family, I want to wish all of you a blessed and Merry Christmas.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there was a ton that we have to cover in the news today. We're going to knock out some of the stories. Then I'm going to get into some of the details that I believe Barack Obama is guilty of treason with. And then at the end of the show, we're going to talk about the Russian interference or the lack thereof. And also we'll hear from Alex Jones. He's got a special report about what George Soros had to say about Donald Trump. But here's some of the headlines that we'll touch on real quick before we get into any of that. This is from the New York Times. National Biotechnology Panel faces new conflict of interest questions. And there's a graphic on this story that kind of breaks it down so you can understand it better. But the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine are assigned by Congress to provide policy guidance to the government. The group describes itself as the advisors to the nation. One of those committees is facing questions about how its members were selected. Critics say that several committee members have financial ties to biotech businesses that could color the panel's report. Does that remind you of Monsanto and the FDA at all? You might want to check the conflict of interest between those two groups. This is another story. This is kind of one that has been developing for years, I suppose. Argentine court revives bombing cover-up case against former President Fernandez. An Argentine appeals court on Thursday revived a case accusing former President Fernandez to trying to cover up Iran's alleged role in the bombing of Buenos Aires Jewish Center in 1994. The prosecutor who first brought the allegation, Alberto Nisman, died mysteriously in January of last year. Nisman's death was initially classified as suicide, but an official investigation to the case said earlier this year the evidence points to homicide. So how do you like that? It's not like we ever see these suicides or alleged suicides look like they might be something different. So we'll keep an eye on what's going on with the former president of Argentina and the covering up of that bombing. France raises terror tax to support victims of attacks. This has to be one of the most unreal things I've ever heard. French citizens will contribute an extra 1.6 euros, that's just about $1.67 on their property insurance policies to help finance a fund for victims of the extremist attacks that have recently hit the country. That's right. Watch what you wear, watch what you say, don't celebrate Christmas, carry around a rape whistle, wear your special bracelet that says you don't want to be raped, and now pay us a tax. That's how we're going to stop the extremist violence going on in Europe.